only thing that matters is who you know and what you got.
What the f***, y'all? God damn! God damn!
You know Rockstar Games is good when their second trailer for GTA 6 makes the first trailer look like an already outdated, older title, and it's only been a year apart. What do you mean the assets got better? Back then I covered the actual intricate video game mechanics, beyond the superficial observation that GTA 6 will look better than a 13-year-old game by now. Well, no shit, right? So yet again I want to dive deep into the video game development concepts behind the astronomical technological advance we've seen from trailer 1 to trailer 2. Concepts like nested physics and anatomical secondary motion. Yes, the game looks so good that we actually get to see the actual skin cells, and certainly people don't look like they're made of plastic anymore, which wouldn't be that unrealistic for a Miami parody. But I'm not even talking about that. Those are obvious advancements that happen throughout the development process. I want to address the little things that are seemingly so simple, yet require an insane amount of brain power to make all this work into one single game. And yes, we might or might not look at Lucia's ass for scientific reasons this time, but not really for the jiggle physics actually. Nested physics are an actually interesting substrate of rigid body physics. Rigid body physics is nothing new. In fact, it is a similarity between a lot, if not the vast majority of 3D games. What happens if I crash this car into this car? In GTA 5, each car gets deflected accordingly to momentum and gravity. In Schedule 1, the damn thing gets shot up to the fucking stratosphere. Different budgets, different strokes. But the idea is the same. How hard bodies interact with each other. Now, a lot of content creators saw a simple scene where Jason bitch slaps the fuck out of that hippie, and people said, whoa, look at that. The coins move as he opens the cash register tray. How cool is that? Anyway, watch how Lucia's ass shakes the whole goddamn earth right here. Now sure, that's an astonishing example of Rockstar's attention to detail. But obviously I had to overanalyze that simple scene in question. Are there any other examples of hard bodies moving in tight little spaces? No, don't go there. What I mean is, most of the times hard bodies interact between each other in a chaotic way. What about when those objects are inside another object or on top of them, and we expect them to behave? And look and behold, I actually found a screenshot where we see a couple of homeless people pushing a shopping cart with what it seems to be full of luggage that looks way too perfect to be rendered as a whole single object. Or when Jason puts down his toolbox and the tools actually move according to the collision of it with the roof. What about this shot of Jason jumping onto a truck carrying a sports car inside of its cargo space? This got my gears cranking a little. In the past we've seen a lot of games that just can't handle this tangible interaction very well. Even Rockstar had a hard time implementing this in GTA's latest installment, as we couldn't even properly transport a measly car inside a Titanic military cargo plane. Hell, they gave us a truck with the literal purpose of carrying cars on top of it, yet this thing can't keep a car on its bed without spazzing out and just letting the car just drop, like he's Lightning McQueen or some shit. And that might be because carrying other rendered independent objects is easier said than done. All this due to parent-object behavior. This is where nested physics come into play. Think of a flatbed truck as a parent object and the car as a child object. The child object will have to inherit every single force that is exerted upon its parent object. If the truck catches a bump, the car will also have to react to said bump. If the truck turns, will the car wheels actually have a grip fighting against said turning? What if the truck suddenly stops? How much forward inertia will be put on the car and the truck? The physics engine will have to consider the weight of the car, the number of contact points, its center of gravity, size, how fast the truck was going. Now sure, many games were able to incorporate a reasonable sense of nested physics. Half-Life Alyx, Boneworks, Hard Space Shipbreaker. But you see what's common between them? That's kind of their whole spiel, you know? They're all about physics. VR games especially, where their graphics takes us back to the golden eye days, but the nested physics are almost flawless. There's nothing much more else that they have to consider, as opposed to a game portraying a busy, tumultuous open world. Hard Space does not even have to consider gravity, as it is a space game. There's a shit ton of shortcuts that they can take in order to deliver this amount of detail in a nested physics engine. Now, we do have an example of Rockstar Games' very own that did somewhat of a good job, which, again, you guessed it, Red Dead Redemption 2, where wagons responded quite nicely to any type of cargo that you'd put onto them. You want a full-grown ass bear on the back of your wagon? I don't care. Meanwhile, GTA 5, oh, don't put a cigarette on me, I might glitch out. I mean, Rockstar didn't spend too much time before flexing their newfound ability in delivering a good sense of nested physics in the very first hour of Red Dead Redemption 2. You remember when jugs and all that kind of crap just fall off the wagon when Arthur breaks the goddamn wheel?
I broke the goddamn wheel.
So it happens these wagons can actually independently carry loose objects. The real challenge for Rockstar for GTA 6 will be the enormous amount of things that will require these nested physics. Although I suspect they'll just try to have a way to have some objects that are dormant until a player can actually see them. So yeah, the dream of me having a thick booty girl twerking on top of my car still stands. Dynamic socket-based clothing system is a mouthful, I know. But believe it or not, it was the easiest name I could come up with that would accurately describe the suspected new clothing system for GTA 6. In Trailer 2, people were amazed by the constant motion seen in clothing accessories like badges and chains. But after also seeing some of the release screenshots, I quickly realized Rockstar is looking to reshape the way clothing itself interacts with the GTA world. You see, the GTA franchise has had modular clothing ever since GTA San Andreas, which merely translates into the ability in the game to set up our playable characters with independent pieces of clothing we ourselves can choose to combine with. Before this, you had games like GTA Vice City, where Tommy had a preset selection of outfits that would actually replace the whole skin of Tommy, including face and all. In easier terms, a texture swap. To translate this into a crude comparison, it would be like you stamping an oversized PNG image over someone like a gift wrap. Even though modular clothing is already a great evolution, the way Rockstar has done this until GTA 5 has been very problematic because it was based on component assets. Through the use of trainers and checking GTA 5 game files, we can see clothing is usually categorized through different slots like the weapon wheel, like upper, shirt overlays, teeth, which is obviously for chains and scarves, obviously. But it isn't as simple as having a slot for undershirts and another one for jackets, as you would naturally dress in real life. That's not how the game works. A lot of times you'll have sleeveless tank tops. Well, what?
Stupid fuck.
A lot of times you'll have tank tops with no arms, jackets that don't have a torso. It is through the combination of shirt overlays and upper that you can actually come up with a functional wardrobe. Even if what you're wearing on the upper part of the character's body is a simple shirt. The most egregious case that happens with GTA Online characters is the abysmal quantity of hand accessory combinations. Tangibility is still a big issue in modern games. A lot of these clothing items will have to account for clipping, where meshes may overlap each other and make it look incredibly unrealistic. For example, the hoods in GTA Online are not actually part of the hoodies. It is an added-on accessory, blocking for the possibility of any headgear or accessories that can be attached somewhere close to it. You'll have an accessory model like gloves that will have a version with no arms, in case you already have a long sleeve item equipped in order to avoid overlapping. But then you can also have gloves with a watch on your left arm, which means a whole different component variation that will also need a version with no arms, another one with half arms, one with full arms. But wait a minute, GTA Online characters can have different skin tones. So now you need a variation of said gloves with that watch, but with a darker skin tone, but also with no arms, half arms, full arms. It's so many fucking arms, man. You end up with 250 plus possible variations for a single slot of clothing sometimes. And we don't have 250 pairs of gloves in GTA Online, it's just the variations that we need to account for. GTA 5 doesn't render a skeleton of your character and then adds the clothes to it. It only changes each component of the body of the character. Simple shit like mix and matching formal and informal pieces get tossed out of the window due to this component-based system. And so this is where socket-based clothing system comes to the rescue. That's what I saw in those screenshots of Jason and Drakewan, where you have the same chain being worn either beneath or over the top part of the outfit. That being a sweater or a jacket, it didn't matter. It was there. Hell, we can see the exact same shades that he was wearing at some point in his face hanging from his tank top's neckline. That's huge. Socket-based systems allow for the clothing items to actually behave like independent, dynamic, and tangible 3D objects. Just picture a bunch of anchor points spread out on a character's skeleton, where each item can be rendered considering the proportions of that body part. We had a bit of a taste in this in Red Dead Redemption 2 with the bandanas, where they can simply rest at Arthur's neckline until we had to pull it up. Sure, they had to use some sort of magic to hide that glorious beard of Arthur Morgan beneath a bandana, but it was also a great example of how tangibility is something that Rockstar can address around this tangible skeleton. That's why John and Arthur have the exact same body, so they can share the exact same clothing models. And even though this is not necessarily clothing, we also have an example of a socket-based system employed in this Rockstar masterpiece with the whole weapon stowing thing, where the sling guns, is that even a word? When the gun goes around, with a sling, you know what I mean. These guns can actually interact with Arthur's skeleton realistically, whether he's standing still, walking, or running. They sway with emotion. They will go down if we apply weight on them, like when we carry an animal on our shoulder. Look, I even got Arthur to carry a giant, ugly, fat fucking rat here. And with a slight hint of bendable properties that I kind of addressed in the first trailer, remember that? And in this one, appearing again as Lucia's shoe actually bends. I'm not talking about the foot lifting as we had in GTA 5 and GTA 4. The shoe actually bending. I don't know if y'all noticed that shit. I lost my mind. It is fair to assume Rockstar can finally create an unrestricted clothing system where pieces of clothing can actually behave as independent, dynamic 3D objects, making this shot of Raoul wearing a watch over his glove indicative of a system that can even spawn two objects in the same relative area and create a concise coexistence between them both. And so end the days of not being able to put on a blazer with pajama pants on. This game is portraying Florida after all. I don't think you would be lore friendly if we could not do that. Now, some of you already know where I'm going with this one.
Look at that. I know everybody loves that big ass, right? But that's proportionate, see? That's what you like, that proportionate one. I mean, that's some good stuff.
But I swear, anatomical secondary motion is a much more profound concept than nice jiggle physics on asses, okay? Secondary motion pertains to any movement that usually counters the main motion of a character or object to bring more dynamism, if that's a word, dynamic aspect to the natural movement of said object or subject. Air physics are an example of secondary motion, which we have covered again for the first trailer. Body goes one way, hair typically goes the other. Not like I would know anything about that, but If you pay close attention to the now famous shot of Lucia's badonkadonk just swaying all over the place like she just does not care, you'll see that Lucia is shifting her weight on one of the legs, creating this type of fold on her clothing between her booty cheek and her waist. Goddamn, we sound so scientific right now. I'm loving it. This makes it seem like that side of the butt actually lifts and tenses up as opposed to the other relaxed side. This is something that naturally happens in our bodies when there's a discrepancy between symmetrical muscle groups, which would be the case for the glutes. The muscles contract and fat stiffens up once you push all your weight onto them. So this made me be extra cautious when I ran through the trailer for a 18th time, okay? Yes, I'm desperate for this game like that. I ended up catching a slightly less attractive example of this secondary motion with a bartender ringing the bell. We can actually notice her fat deposit beneath our arm swaying accordingly with the primary motion of ringing the bell. Whenever the arm comes to a stop, the fat just does not give a fuck and it just keeps on going. We can even see this attention to detail in a static shot of Lucia at the edge of the pool, where one of our arms actually lumps over the edge of the pool, where she is seemingly putting most of her weight while the other arm remains flat. Even if this only applies to the cutscenes portion of the game, it is insane their body rig actually considers this contradictory motion or anatomical response based on external world properties. Now beyond this, we can also address the muscle simulation that we've seen mainly on Jason. When comparing these two frames, at first I thought it was just shadow work. Even in real life, shadows sometimes can make muscles look way more substantial than what they actually are. But the simple fact we can see the specific little muscle flare up when he puts his weight on as he climbs down the ladder, with both frames being unaffected by that shadow, it's insane. We see this muscle simulation once again when his arms come down during bench press. His anterior muscles contract and relax throughout the whole motion, which simply does not happen in GTA 5, and even if it did, Rockstar would have probably used a binary system between two 2D shaders to fake some sort of motion amongst muscles, the same way they faked cloth physics by blending two shaders of apparent wrinkles connected with a character's walking pace. Again, all of this is two-dimensional, it doesn't actually happen physics-wise. And you might wonder, what is the purpose of all this if it's such a minuscule detail? But in my opinion, I think it's going to be pretty cool for the game to have the ability to deliver a scene where we can visibly see our character just struggling to do a certain task. And the fat shaking from side to side will definitely be a plus around the clouds, okay? Photometrics pertains to how the human eye perceives visible lighting. Now, because we're talking about computers and machines and algorithms, they tend to draw the perfect simulation. But we don't see visible lighting perfectly. And so in video game development, there is a bunch of tricks that you, as a developer, will have to recur to in order to simulate a realistic output of how light would be perceived by the human eye. It is not a secret that GTA 6 will absolutely, almost for a certainty, going to include ray tracing technology. But developers saying they've incorporated ray tracing into their game is like a person saying they have an Aston Martin. That car could either be an Aston Martin DB12, an absolute bombshell of a car, one of my favorite dream cars, or it could be an Aston Martin Signet. Yes, this car exists. What I mean is, stamping ray tracing on a game does not automatically make it a good lighting system. And as I said, I'm not really interested in analyzing what everybody already did or knows about, but just in case you might be unaware to all this, ray tracing differs from the traditional screen space reflection system, or SSR, that most games adopt in a way that it calculates light reflection. This SSR only cares about what happens in your screen in a way that it calculates light reflection. Devs will hard-code the light behavior and use 2D shaders to fake any possible off-screen light reflection, while ray tracing will have an algorithm that calculates every possible light reflection pixel by pixel. All this in response to how the game world might affect it, at a clear expense of insane processing power. So yeah, GTA 6 will have pretty lighting, but I need a justifiable need for ray tracing if it's gonna cost me performance, especially on a PlayStation 5. And this is what I actually spotted. At first, this shot of Jason passing by a police bus made it seem like there was an unmarked Crown Vic unit parked at the rear of the pack. By the way, love the fact that they still put on the Crown Vic in the game. I appreciate that, Rockstar. Sexiest police car ever seen. But as the camera pans to a different angle and with a different approach, we quickly see it's not an unmarked unit, it is actually a ghost unit. For my non-LSPDFR geeks out there, ghost units will seem unmarked until light shines upon its reflective material, exposing the department's insignias. And I lost my shit at this. Even though GTA 5 does not natively exploit this is another example where technically, yes, we have this concept portrayed in the much older GTA 5, at least within the modding scene. I myself was able to design a texture using functional reflective decals on a modified police cruiser. But I endured one of those moments where you go back to older games and feel like, this game didn't look this bad, did it? This is where the concept of photometrics, or the advanced part of it actually, makes a huge difference. In the trailer we can notice the decals can reflect even during the day, as long as there's direct incidental source of light. Not just by the headlights, but also by the sun. But when I went back to GTA 5 to try the exact same thing, these light reflections would both not work during the day even at low brightness, and the light source had to directly shine with an almost perfect angle to it in order for it to be visible. I tried so many variations with the same car model with different texture variations, and I was never able to truly have a car that looked unmarked and then all of a sudden had decals all over it with the proper lighting. Even with visual mods, the game's just not prepared to have such an advanced level of photometrics. Then we have the shot of Lucia again. First and foremost, I absolutely love the way the red drink actually gets reflected. You see the red shadow of the drink, but then you also see the transparent shadow of the rim of the glass and the shadows of the contents of the drink, like that leaf that looks like mint. I'm pretty sure, I don't know. It's not even that advanced. I'm sure some games might have done this before, but it's so beautifully employed, it blows my mind. Anyway, the main thing about this shot, people, look at the base of the cocktail glass. These motherfuckers even simulated the light refraction that happens through the stem of the glass. The whole base of the glass becomes red. Not just in the area where the red shadow is supposed to overlap on the base of the glass. The whole base. Then you take a look at the phone. What do you mean is not a blatant light that is coming out of the phone? It actually considers the brightness of the day and makes the phone screen realistically look dark in a sunny day. Rockstar, what do you want? $120 for the game?
Give me $1,000.
Now, despite the fact that Trailer 2 was 100% damage control for the delay on the release date of GTA 6, goddamn, that was a lot of money lost. It gave me a sense that I might love games the same way that I did as a kid again. Because this was the first trailer in a long time that made me A, want to play a GTA game with the closest camera possible, and B, excited to live another year. That sounded way too dark for what I actually wanted to say, but I'm saying I'm glad. It's not depressing shit. It's a good thing. The vibes are all there. People act human. The world looks alive and diverse. And can we just appreciate that? Instead of going through the route of, this looks too good to be true. I like to go into mommy Emma Frost in my bed. Where the fuck am I going with this? Like, stop being that guy. Because the reality is Rockstar Games can have a lot of flaws, especially regarding GTA Online's predatory practices, but like Shakira's hips, their trailers don't lie. They didn't flood GTA 5 trailers with a bunch of NPCs. Hell, they even forgot to render a part of the map. Believe me when I say this, we're good.